start the new year right. 12 o'clock tonight, when they dim the light, let's begin.
Rumble! Rumble into 2020, everybody. No, we're not still partying from last night. This is Michael Moore. You're listening to Rumble with Michael Moore, my new podcast. And it is 2020. We have entered a new year, a new decade. And I'm sitting here in our little podcast studio that we built with the executive producer and the brains behind this operation, a young man who's been a producer on many of my films over the last 15 years or so. And I want to introduce him to you right now. His name is Basil Hamden. And welcome, Basil, and Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. We made it, 2020.
We made it.
We made it. Although people have been complaining that this isn't actually the end of a decade.
There's that whole thing that the zero is the 10th year.
Yeah.
No.
We can just ignore that.
Ignore all of that. They did that back with in the year 2000, whether that was the beginning of a new century.
Math is not going to be our specialty on Rumble. Let's just preface that right now, that math is not going to be our go-to.
That's true.
Yeah.
We are a fact-based podcast,
true.
But we are not a math-based podcast.
Exactly. Yeah.
I notice you're not wearing a math button over there.
No. They didn't like you. The Yang Gang didn't like your tweet the other day about
really?
about that subject.
But, I'm sorry about that. I know people were so excited. I liked him. I thought at least there's some fresh ideas here, and I thought it was good that he was in. Is he still in? He's still in the race, but not really, because he eliminated himself this past Sunday on this week with George Stephanopoulos. Of course, George wasn't there. There was a fill-in for him. And this guy just played Andrew Yang some tape of him saying that he was for Medicare for All, but not really for Medicare for All. And it was, we won't go into it now. You can look it up. I posted it on Twitter, and Sean King did also. It's a very sad self-immolation of an otherwise nice guy. He worked in the Obama administration. He cares about people, and but has taken the same shift that the other candidates. Remember the first debate? They all raised their hand. I think all but one. Was it all but John Delaney, if I remember correctly?
Yeah.
That when who's here for Medicare for All, they all raised their hands, and then they've spent since whenever that was back in the late summer, walking it back. Trying to not be for Medicare for All, trying to change the words to universal health care, but they're not, they understand that people don't want to give up their private, it's like there's not going to be any giving up. If you've got great health insurance, under Medicare for All, that just transfers to everybody else. You'll have that, and guess what? All your fellow Americans will have it. But this is New Year's Day. We're not going to talk about Medicare for All or all the other things that we're going to work very hard for this year. If you listen to last night's show, our New Year's Eve, actually it was our Rumblin' New Year's Eve, our Dick Clark New Year's Rumblin' Eve special here on Rumble. And
rest in peace, Dick.
And yes, speak no ill of the dead. I already did that in Bowling for Columbine, Dick Clark segment of the movie there, but. Listen, I asked the people listening to the show, the podcast here, if they would kindly send in either a voicemail today or an email or a tweet or whatever. But I want to put the listeners of the show onto the show for the first time here, because we're going to be doing a lot of that this year with this podcast and other things we're going to be doing to organize, bring others into this, do this together. Those of you who are listening right now, my only interest in doing this actually is if I can do it with you. If it's just going to be, me yakking away and everybody else just going, that's a nice podcast. I will have failed. I'm hoping that I'm coming on online here on this podcast to tell you that I want to be down with you in what we've got to do to fix things. I'm with you. You're with me. I don't know. I know there's a Mr. Rogers song in there somewhere, but anyway, so we asked people to send in their emails and tweets, and we had a voicemail operation here where they could actually leave a message. And Basil and I are going to read the tweets and the emails, and then we're going to play for you some of the responses. So, and I asked people not for resolutions, but for declarations, and like declare what you are going to do this year. And and it could be anything. It could be something just in your community or neighborhood or globally or whatever it is. And I started off by making my declarations for the year. That number one, by the end of the year, I want to hear the words President-elect Bernie Sanders. And again, that's me, but I know there are people out there listening who are for Elizabeth Warren and others. And all I want you to do is to do the work that's needed to be done this year to get your candidate elected. Don't sit around. I mean, we're just weeks away from the first caucus. And then we'll all get behind whoever, the Democrat is, assuming, this was done fairly and squarely. There's no real caveat there, actually. I just am saying that because I want to warn the DNC that I know how you've rigged this. I know that the superdelegates, the people that are unelected by the people, don't get to vote on the first ballot. The first ballot's going to be supposedly a pure ballot based on the actual votes of the actual people in the 50 states and the territories, and that's who the nominee is going to be, unless, I'm not going to be able to quote the rules directly, but if there isn't a majority on that first ballot, then on, I think, the second ballot, somewhere in there, the superdelegates get to come back in and vote, and that's when they take it away from the people. And, they wake up Joe Biden and tell him that he's just been nominated as the Democratic nominee as President of the United States, and he's all spit shine and happy, and then we proceed, as we did nearly 4 years ago, down the road to a Clinton-like outcome where Joe Biden wins the popular vote by a massive margin and loses the Electoral College vote to Donald Trump. Okay, I didn't even want to say that on New Year's Day. We're trying to be happy here today, so I'm just saying that's what I don't want to have happen. So my declaration was to stop that from happening. My second declaration was to get back to going out on my nightly walk and maybe take you listening with me sometimes. My third declaration was to visit more college campuses and talk and listen to young people. Young people are the ones that are really leading the revolution now. They're appropriately and sufficiently angry at us older adults. Good for them, absolutely. We have left them with a planet that's in horrible shape, and a country that has essentially lost whatever form of democracy we claimed we had. So good on them. And my third declaration was to be with them in whatever way that I can. And then my fourth declaration was my call for lowering the voting age to age 16. There's already a half a dozen countries that have done this. It's turned out that those countries that lower the voting age to 16, when kids start voting in high school, they vote for the rest of their lives at a much higher rate than when the voting age is 18 and they start voting after they're out of school, and they don't start a rhythmic process that they would start if they were in high school, and everybody's registered to vote in high school. And it's an idea that I've seen happen. I went there, I observed it. Austria, Brazil, Scotland did it in their referendum that they had as to whether or not to separate from the UK. So that was number four. And my fifth one was that whatever I am gaining from the tax, the new Trump tax law, I'm spending that, whatever savings I get from that, I'm spending all of that on trying to get rid of Trump and trying to fix some of the things in this country and contribute in that way. I am not morally allowed to pocket any tax cut in a time like this, and so my fifth declaration was to was to say that's that. So, did you have any, Basil? I mean, were you thinking about it when we did this last night? Did you fall asleep thinking about it? Did you dream about it?
I've been dreaming about it. I've had a one-track mind here, which is to help make Rumble a force to be reckoned with in 2020. We initially thought of these first few podcasts as spring training, just to get our feet under us and get us going. But I guess to our surprise, we're doing really, really, really well, really early. But we've got much bigger plans than this, which is to make Rumble a major, major, major factor in media, in politics, in organizing. The country needs it. We need it. And that is my declaration is to make that happen.
To grow this from just a podcast.
Yes.
I think the way we've been talking about this is to have it be a place, primarily on the internet, that can bring information, news, education, etc., to people in a way that's not necessarily brought to them in the way that it comes to them through other forms, although there are many good people doing many good things, and we're going to highlight them on this podcast, but also to have a site, essentially on the internet, a Rumble site where that will be both. It will be audio like this. It'll be video. We'll have our YouTube. We've got our YouTube channel set up where you can also listen to this right now, the audio version of this. But we will. I think we're going to make some little short films and videos that will be up to our usual shenanigans. We'll just put it that way, that people are used to from my films. We'll be doing that this year. We'll have writers. So we'll have some really good analysis of what's going on and some good investigative reporting, et cetera. So this is all part of the larger plan, but there's also the political organizing arm of this that we want to do. I mean, if you want to just touch on that just a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, people know in your work you don't pretend to be unbiased or balanced, in air quotes,
because it's impossible for a human to be unbiased.
Yes,
the very fact that we're human beings means that we have feelings, biases, preferences, etc. So any so-called reporter or that says that they're trying to be that, they're just, it's a con at this point. I think most people are onto that.
I think one of the big reasons there's so much distrust of the media is that many of even our better media outlets, they consider themselves objective and unbiased, and they think of themselves as down the middle, as if that's not an ideology of its own. People know where we're coming from, and so we don't have to hide our politics. We don't have to hide our intentions, right. Who we want to win, where we want to see the country go, where we want to see the world go. It's very tied into the journalism that we do, the activism and the journalism.
Right.
So people will be seeing a lot more of that, I think.
Yeah, and we'll get into. We'll talk a little bit more about that in the coming weeks. But we wanted to start with the podcast, and again, like you said, we just thought, why don't we let's start this over the holidays. Nobody will be listening, right? They're busy. Christmas, New Year's, Kwanzaa, Hanukkah, the college football playoff games. All the important religions are covered in these 2 weeks. So we just thought we would let's just start, and we did, and the thing really kind of took off, and it's really kind of just the two of us, and we have a wonderful tech engineer, Nick, and we've had the people. Actually, this podcast room was essentially built by my nieces and my nephew and my sister. Actually, it's kind of a family affair in a way. My two sisters. My nieces Kelsey and Leah have been here, and Kelsey's husband Joe, and they researched all this of how to. I mean, none of them do this for a living, but they helped me get this thing off the ground, helped me build this room, and I'm grateful. I'm grateful for family members that I have. We can do this. I can do this with, and we had a lot of good advice from people that we asked who have podcasts, Sean King and others that we met with while we were thinking about doing this.
Yeah, the great folks at Endeavor Audio were very helpful.
Very helpful.
Ben Riskin and the guys there.
And I think will continue to be.
Absolutely, absolutely. 368 Studios has been very helpful to us.
Okay, yeah, they're connected to Casey. I mean, they're
yes.
One of the great YouTube stars, and they've been very helpful. I mean, to the point where we just called them up one day and we needed a couple of portable lav mics, and sure, just come down and pick them up. That
was actually for the Robert De Niro episode. You heard that through lav mics generously donated to us or borrowed to us.
And they do this for a lot of people who are trying to start their own podcasts or whatever. Anchor is this great hosting platform that we're on that is free. It's free to anybody, free for you to set up your podcast and put it out there. We met with them and they said, we are about the democracy angle of podcasting, that it be available to anyone and that anyone is able to do it. And we will help them do that. They're very egalitarian in this way. And we were fortunate to meet with some of them. And other people that have had podcasts. We've talked to Nick Hanauer and others who have podcasts and have kind of given us the
good folks at Chapo Trap House have been very generous with their ideas and
the good folks. That's true. these guys in this and they are so funny and so right on. If you haven't heard their podcast, it's total pandemonium.
They're the voice of the dirtbag left.
They're the voice of the dirtbag left. Chapo Trap House. So we're leaving out some people here. We will mention them later, but we're grateful to anybody who's given us any advice on how to do something that we've never done before. And then we just started, and then boom, in like 4 days or so, we were at the top of the charts, both the news podcast charts and then the overall podcast charts. And you were just checking it before we started recording here today. And today we're at number 2 of all news podcasts in the country.
Right behind The Daily by the New York Times. And yeah, still up at number 2. It's amazing how...
Yeah, we've been at 1 or 2 on the news podcasts. And we have no explanation or justification for this. We're just grateful that because so many of you are listening to this, and it's funny too, because of the holiday break, there's nobody at work right now at Apple, at Spotify. They're all gone. And we've had no way to try and reach out to them to say, hey, are we doing this or are we posting this the right way? We've just tried to figure this out on our own during the holidays. They're going to come back on Monday. Like, what the hell happened here? They said maybe by the end of the first quarter, we might break the top 100, on the charts, maybe. But no, we have no Facebook ads. We have no ads anywhere. I didn't go on any TV shows to promote this. We were already at number 1 when I finally went on the first show on the Friday night before Christmas. And then I went on Brian Lair's radio show. And we've not really been out there. It's just people telling other people about it, and we're grateful for that. And it's a nice way for us to start out the new year. And it really encourages us to do the work that we're going to do through this podcast and through these other things we were talking about, to organize people all across the country. I have a couple little ideas I'm going to give you by the end of the podcast today that you can start doing right now. But I think we want to get to the part of the show that is our listeners' participation. So we asked you again yesterday on New Year's Eve to send us your declarations for the year 2020. You could tweet them, you could email them, or you could leave us a voicemail. And man, Basil, I've been reading these here all night and morning. It's been an amazing response, and maybe we should just get to it, right? And just start.
Let's
you want to start with the tweets?
Yeah, let's start with the tweets. I mean, we can't unfortunately read every single one of them. It would keep us here for hours. We've got hundreds, maybe thousands now of emails, tweets, and voice messages through Anchor. But let's just start with some of these tweets. These are the 2020 #2020 declarations that we got after your call out last night. The first one is from Barbara Leone. Her declaration is not to feel hopeless over politics. Your podcast, Michael, reminded me that the majority of Americans think similarly on so many important issues. 45 would like us to forget that.
That's a great point. That's right. We are the majority. The majority of people go down, as I said, I'll say this as often as I need to say it. The majority of Americans believe climate change is real. Women should be paid the same as men. Mass incarceration is evil. The minimum wage needs to be doubled or tripled. Just go down the list. And the American people take the liberal left position on every issue. And we need to celebrate the fact that we are no longer in the minority. We are in the majority. And in fact, the majority of our fellow Americans did not vote for number 45, who's in the White House.
Mac Attack at John_McDone says, I will help register voters in my district, 11th District, Michigan.
Oh, good. Excellent. That's what we need. This is, Michigan, the majority of the people vote for Democrats, and yet we have had, for the better part of the last couple decades, I think we have like 13 or 14 members of Congress, and 4 have been Democrats, 4 or 5. And that's just not right. It's a majority Democratic state, and yet they carve up the maps. And this is going to change now because we passed a law in Michigan last November making it a crime to gerrymander and to voter suppress. And this is all being switched around and getting ready for the 2020 census. The gerrymandering has officially, we've put it in the Constitution in the state of Michigan. It is officially over. And our members of Congress are going to reflect the will of the people of the state of Michigan. So thank you, John McDonough, out there registering people in the 11th Congressional District in the state of Michigan. Thank you so much for that.
Which is represented by the great Haley Stevens.
Oh my God. If you have not checked out Haley Stevens, this is okay. So suburban Detroit, these 2 congressional districts, the white suburban Detroit, have been represented by these awful Republicans for God knows how many years. And last November, a year ago November, we all got together and we threw out these 2 Republicans from Congress, and we elected 2 women, 2 Democratic women, and in these northern suburbs and exurbs of Detroit. And Haley Stevens is one of them, and she is rocking it. She's a fighter. She says what she thinks. You'll read more about her, I'm sure, because, but it's a swing district. So thank you, Mac Attack, there for getting out there and making sure people vote for her.
Pundits try and push or pit the so-called squad, those freshman women, against some of the other women, freshmen in Congress.
Oh, right.
As if the squad, they're so far to the left, they're out on the left flank. They're not, there are much more like them that are much more moderate and better and this and that. But some of these other ones are wonderful and should not be pit against the Rashidas and the AOCs and the Ilhans.
No, in fact, if anything, I would say Haley Stevens is the non-Palestinian Rashida Tlaib. I don't know if that makes any sense or if she would appreciate that, but seriously, she's in her own way every bit of the vim and vigor,
Spitfire,
on fire, ready to light a fire for our democracy. There's so many of these women that got elected last year that you haven't heard of because the pundits and the Republicans and sometimes even some of the Democratic leadership haven't attacked them yet the way they've attacked AOC or Ilhan or Rashida. But I can tell you that for every Ilhan and Rashida, there is a Haley Stevens times 3 there right now in Congress, and we need more of them this coming year.
At Wendy G Baker, for my 2020 declaration, I'm going to help get out the vote and oust the moron, aka 45. Okay, we got a lot of that, obviously, but we also got a lot of this. My family commits to protecting the earth by decreasing carbon footprint. Plant-based foods, no plastic. We stand with Greta Thunberg. Thank you, Michael Moore.
Wow, great. Wow, that makes me very happy. But who do we have next?
We have Kimberly Chang at KTChang325. I declare that I will put up my Bernie lawn signs in my suburban Philly town and devote my time to getting Bernie Sanders elected.
That's great. That's great. I'll save this for the end, but for those of you who want to do just that, just put up some yard signs, just do this in your neighborhoods. I can't think of a more important thing to do on a micro, local level. But we'll finish the podcast by giving you a couple of ideas what everybody can do. What's our next declaration?
Next declaration, I guess I should have known this, but we have a lot of international listeners and followers.
Oh, welcome all of you who are deeply worried about the United States.
At Seb Farrell. Hi, Mike. Just heard your NYE Rumble in Warrington, UK. It was very moving. Thank you. Here's my 2020 declaration. Number 1, engage more people I disagree with. Number 2, become the UK Michael Moore and encourage all my fellow Rumblers to create documentaries too. And number 3, try stand-up.
Oh, like stand-up, like comedy.
Yes.
He's declaring.
Yes.
Seb.
Yes.
Is in addition to this political work, he's going to do stand-up also.
Yes.
Great. We need more laughter right now, especially in the UK. Oh, my God.
He already made me laugh because I thought he had a physical ailment and was going to try and stand up this year.
Oh.
I misread it, but he's actually going to try stand-up. So
right.
Good for Seb. He's already making us laugh.
Okay, what else we got here?
Well, we got
via Twitter.
Well, we got thousands of emails. Do you want to get into the emails?
Well, let's see. My first one is from Jennifer Carley, and Jennifer says that in 2020, my declaration is, I'm finally going to admit I am an artist. My art soothes, provides some hope, and has democratically social and environmental things to say. I expect this sexual predator to be considered unfit to lead the country ever again. Throwing him in prison works for me too. Every single woman who has come forward is not lying. As victims, they risked getting death threats. They didn't say something just for the hell of it. If anyone is wondering how coming forward could be difficult, ask a survivor who's willing to set you straight. Wow, that's very, very powerful, Jennifer. Let's see, my next email that we received here is from Lisa Dumont, and Lisa says, my first declaration is, I will launch a blog and a podcast to promote kindness and tolerance in daily life. My second declaration, I will work and or volunteer to get out the vote in 2020. If all the Democrats vote, we will win. Power to the people. Marie Wilson says, I will continue to plant seeds with people who think that politics is just too confusing, too combative, too insignificant to deal with. I will continue to rally, show up, extend my hand to people who need help understanding what we're facing. I will continue to stay informed, and I will get this information from legitimate sources. Let's see, this is from Karen Wallace. My resolution for 2020 is to give up meat and dairy. I started about a week ago after watching two wonderful documentaries, which are What the Health and the game changers. Josh Gorell says, my solutions and my declaration go beyond handing out blankets and coffee. I will work to bring about permanent housing solutions to the mentally disabled while forming a support system for those on the street to help each other, which will bring a sense of purpose to their lives, a great step in the path to integrity and dignity. And also he wants to do a shout out here to organic farming and for living in Central California. Well, God bless you for that, Josh. Thank you.
Julie Decker, she says, I declare that I will listen more and try to understand people who are from different cultures / don't look like me. I moved from a suburb in Saginaw to downtown Detroit this spring. Sold our family home, car, gave away most of our possessions so my husband and I could experience life in more diverse surroundings. It's been a great move. But when I am puzzled by others' behavior because it is, quote, it is not what I'm used to, I'm going to listen more, ask questions, and try to understand why.
Wow, that's very powerful. Keith Grace writes to us, Michael, in 2020, I declare to be the best possible public school third grade teacher I can, meaning not just teaching, but comforting and nurturing souls, advocating for children and their families, despite the hostile, neoliberal, corporatist takeover of our public education in the United States, and specifically in my faux blue, corporatist-run and sad home state of New Jersey. My profession of teaching has devolved into a demoralizing 7-day-a-week affair for teachers and, most importantly, for our students. The power structure looks at them as data, test scores, and threatening liabilities to annual budgets and property tax increases, angering the wealthiest residents of our state. As soul-crushing as it is, our pay decreases in various ways. In spite of that, I am declaring that I will look at my students as humans put here on this earth at an awfully uncertain time and serve them to the best of my ability. They are the reason I remain in this profession. There's nothing more important than our youth. Wow. Wow. I mean, I hear from teachers all the time the demoralization of this profession and how I think the average length that a teacher stays in teaching before burnout occurs now is somewhere around 5 years. The average teacher now only makes it through 5 years of working before they give up. This should be declared a national emergency. It's amazing, and his letter very powerfully states that. Well, who do you have next?
Scott Moore, no relation, I don't think.
No Scotts anywhere in this family.
My name is Scott Moore, and I'm from Pittsburgh. For 2020, I would love to see a Bernie Sanders presidency, but most importantly, I would love to see progress towards the elimination of the student loan debt. I graduated with an economics degree from a small private college in 2017, and the burden of student loan debt has had a great effect on myself and my generation. The story of the American dream said that if you graduate from high school, go to college, and get a job, you can achieve upward mobility. However, the increase in costs of college or secondary education has encouraged more students to take on high levels of student debt. As a result, graduates often leave college unprepared to pursue their career and life goals, unable to afford rent or enter the housing market, and are saddled with a debt burden that limits their upward mobility. I believe this issue will have an enormous long-term effect on the economy, especially amongst the millennial and Generation Z population. Scott Moore.
Wow. That's Scott. Thank you. This next one comes from Kay Shardy. She writes, last month, as Donald Trump officially moved from New York City to Florida, I too moved to Florida from my beloved New York City. So my declaration is that in 2020, I will cancel out Trump's vote for himself in Florida. Wow. That's right there. Done. Mic drop.
Well, Anna can one-up that one.
Oh, okay, good. Let's hear that.
From Brazil, my 2020 declaration will be becoming a U.S. citizen so I can vote the asshole out of the White House in November.
Whoa, don't say her name. She's not a citizen yet.
I didn't say her last name.
Okay, all right. Oh, my God. Yeah, but ICE is going to be like on their computers now. They're going to stop. She's not going to be.
Oh, boy. Yeah.
They're not going to swear in somebody who's swearing in to vote the asshole out of the White House. Okay, but just let's go on. Continue with her. What else does she say?
I have been a resident of this country for the past years, and now more than ever must take this step forward. So I, as a social worker in, I'll leave out the city that she's from, set an example for my Latino students. My 3 schools serve predominantly Latino students of what citizenship means and help elect a candidate who is for our diverse community. Thank you for all you do, Michael.
Well, welcome to America. And let's, it's New Year's Day. Nobody at ICE is listening to podcasts, right?
This is their one day off.
It's their one day off, and they all have hangovers.
Exactly.
From drinking really shitty tequila,
Yes.
which that's the one part of Mexico they love is the tequila.
Yes.
So they're not listening to this today. So I think we're safe. I have started to question why I'm supporting Mayor Pete. By now, I'm strongly thinking about supporting Bernie. My declaration for 2020 is that I will be a better person to everyone. I will live the values that I think our America should represent, and not the values that Trump has allowed us to become. To me, this is the true way to make America great again. I realize that this is a very vanilla declaration. It's okay. You already admitted that you were for Mayor Pete, so you didn't need to be redundant by saying there's a vanilla-ness to this. But in today's world, being a little good to each other can make a world of difference. Wow, that's beautiful. Lane, thank you very much. And Lane writes, cheers to all the good people who are listening to this and who are fighting the good fight.
That includes Ruth Shapiro. She's a social worker, and she says, I pledge to initiate an American effort to require all preschool children to take a kindness and meditation certification. The world and country will be a better place. Ruth Shapiro.
Well, so there's a lot of, I know reading these, there are a lot of people who just want to, let's just live in a world where we're good to each other, you know?
A lot of teachers, a lot of nurses, a lot of educators of all kinds.
I've written this today and last night. John Shaddy writes here, declarations for 2020. Number 1, no superdelegates, period. All caps. Number 2, no Debbie Wasserman Schultzes or anyone like her. Number 3, no DNC. They think they know better. They don't. They are the establishment. They strive to perpetuate all that gave us Trump. The DNC has no interest in all that the American superhero, Bernie Sanders, has spent his life fighting for. And then P.S., please, no more mention or sight of the Clintons. That's from John Shaddy. It's good to see people writing in all caps on New Year's Day. Kind of woke me up a little bit here.
Elizabeth Robson, I declare that in 2020, I'm going to work harder than ever to help bring down the industrial civilization that's killing the planet. I will write more and talk more about our profound disconnection from nature, the source of all life, and I will build my skills for living in the natural community in post-industrial times. Cheers, Elizabeth.
Natalie writes, in 2020, my declaration is that I'm going to get a handle on myself to better deal with my son's mental health and addiction issues that are tearing apart my family and this nation. There's no compassion, no resources available, in spite of its terrible impact on so many in this country, and it is hollowing our generation after generation out. When I can accomplish that, I will then become a better advocate for others. Wow. You're not alone, Natalie, with this. it's on everybody's mind. It does not get discussed. It's never brought up really during the debates or anything. And, you know, I know that there are some candidates that do care about this. So thank you for bringing it up.
Well, this is connected to that. Polly writes, "Good morning, Michael. I declare that in 2020, I will launch a podcast on psychological perspectives on current U.S. politics and therefore the world. This will be my sobering but positive drop in the bucket against the mass depression which has overtaken the country under this mentally ill administration. Big hugs to you, Polly." Actually, there is a podcast that I've been listening to, Madness by Dr. Steven Reisner, which connects psychological issues with politics and economic issues. So
yes,
Polly's sounds like it will connect to this.
More of that.
Yeah.
Yes. Steven Reisner, you know, we know him from the fact that he took on the American Psychological Association and their support of using psychiatrists and psychologists to wreak torture upon people in Guantanamo and these other black sites. And he fought this with other psychologists in the APA and was successful in bringing an end, hopefully, to this. Polly, that's great that you're doing that too. This is from a man whose first name I believe is pronounced Swamanthair, and he says that he's retiring in June of 2020. So my declaration is then to volunteer for voter registration and participate, including as a driver for an Uber-like app to transport people to voting places, and to pick up those of all backgrounds so that they can get to the polls. This includes waiting for them so they have a round trip. That's a key point. They have a round trip back home. Is there, like, has somebody developed this app yet? Like, he says, like, maybe he's saying he's going to create an Uber-like app for people to use just when they want to get a ride to the polls, no charge, and there'll be people who in their area will take them to the polls, wait for them, and take them back.
I don't know if they do this already, but Lyft and Uber should do that themselves. You know,
yes,
they all want to get, you know, good PR or whatever. Like this would be, you know.
I have seen Lyft do something like this. I don't know if it's for voting, but on some days they offer free rides for, I can't remember what it was.
Yeah.
Yes, they should do this, and this is a very important thing because a lot of times people don't have transportation to go vote.
Cindy Brannon, once I hit 60, I became more cognizant of the fact that I had many more years behind me than ahead. I declare that in 2020, I am going to love me as much as I love and care for others, and maybe splurge on a fine bottle of scotch. Happy New Year.
Well, I think that's always a good thing for people to do. You know,
self-love or scotch drinking.
I meant the self-love, but if the scotch gets you there, you know, more power to you.
I am gonna make it through this year if it kills me. I am gonna make it through this year if it kills me.
We want to play some of these voicemails here shortly, because I found these to be fascinating, and it's just great to hear from people who are listening to the podcast. Geez, there's so many more of these emails and tweets, and I can't thank people enough, you know, for sending this in and saying what they're going to do. And I'm sorry, you know, we haven't had time to read all of them here on Rumble, but you've really helped, I think, us to kick off the new year with your commitment, because we all need to know we're not alone in this. I need that. I need to know that I'm not just doing this to hear the sound of my own voice. I can listen to myself all day, and believe me, I do. It's just, I don't foist it on anybody else. Usually it's just I have a number of good conversations each day with me. But we're not alone in this. There's millions of us, folks, millions and millions of us. And we need to hold our hand out to the 100 million or so who've given up, who don't vote. We remember one of our mantras here this year is that it's not enough just to beat Trump, okay, to get enough votes to beat Trump. Hillary beat Trump. Gore beat Bush. Beating these people, these Republicans, is not enough. They have to be crushed. I'm sorry, I mean that in a nonviolent way, but we have to get people out in these key states. But we also need everybody. Don't think because you live in California or New York, it doesn't matter because these are blue states. The Democrat who wins, hopefully Bernie, but whoever, needs to see, and the Congress needs to see, that they won with so many millions of votes behind them that Congress better not think about anything else other than doing the will of the American people. So that's why it's key for every state to have a huge turnout. And for the Democrats to please this time have a strategy where you let the candidate go to Wisconsin or Michigan. Outrageous that we let this happen. We let it happen with Gore, and then we let it happen again with Clinton, with Hillary. Not ever again. Not on my watch and not on your watch, right, folks listening? Right? Millions of us. We are the majority of this country. We are the majority in terms of number of voters, and we are the majority in terms of where we stand on all the issues. The majority of our fellow Americans agree with us. So I want to play some of the voicemails that have come in. These are people who are wanting to offer their declarations for 2020. This is a great thing about Anchor, this hosting platform for anybody that wants to do a podcast can do it for free. People listening to the podcast can actually call in and leave a 1-minute voicemail. And people have been leaving these since we started 2 weeks ago. And I listen to them every day. So if you ever want to leave me a voicemail, I will hear it. If you write comments or reviews on your hosting sites for these podcasts, I will read them. I do read them. I read them every day. So know that you're talking to me, even though obviously I can't, I have 10 million social media followers. I can't obviously have a conversation individually with 10 million people, but I want the connection. And I know you want the connection to each other and to all the other people that are listening and participating in this. We're going to offer some very definitive ways that we can all do this on a daily or weekly basis. But Basil, why don't we play some of these incredible, wonderful, sweet voicemails that came in here last night and this morning here on our New Year's Day podcast.
Hello, Michael. This is Eric Wolf, born and raised in Southfield, Michigan. I declare that in 2020, we should encourage young people, and all people for that matter, to pursue their art, whether it's as a musician, a painter, a filmmaker, a writer, whatever. These endeavors have value, even if they won't make you rich. We have far too many financiers, lawyers, private equity criminals, techies, and the like. Our culture needs art for its message, for its enjoyment, for its beauty. Parents, don't discourage your kids when they tell you they want to be an artist. Celebrate their creativity. Watch them blossom. There is more to life than simply pursuing wealth. Today's kids know that we've left them a mess. Let's encourage them to enjoy their lives rather than just being a cog in the crappy system we've created.
Oh man, that is powerful. That right on. Thank you. Thank you for that. Let's just play these. Let's just play these out one after the other. So everybody, you're listening to Rumble here with Michael Moore, and we are playing actual voicemails that were left for me this morning or last night from people who wanted to make their own declarations for 2020. And I wanted to open up today's show to you and to them. And so these are a series of voicemails I received here last night and this morning.
I am going to convince my husband of 40 years that Climate change is a real emergency, not just a problem that technology is going to solve. It won't be easy, but I am determined to do it.
Hi, Michael. My name is Tara Hoffman. I am a psychologist in Portland, Oregon, and I have dedicated my life to working with people who are suffering and experiencing economic, environmental, educational, etc., disempowerment. And I just want to say how much I appreciate you and the work you're doing. I've followed you for decades and have found all of the episodes of Rumble to be incredibly compelling. Most recently, the episode 9 with Anand Giridharadas. I love the idea about the golf course film. I think it's incredible, and it's a way to touch on every issue you've discussed, even the lopsided nature of the game and the economy and how it's rigged against people, most people. Keep doing what you're doing. Take care. Bye-bye.
Dear Michael, I'm Canadian, so I'll start by saying I'm sorry. Love you, love all that you do. Thank you. I declare that for 2020, I am going to focus on all the beauty around me, all the love of people, the generosity, nature, everything that makes our life worth living, because that will energize me to accomplish things and do things to help strengthen the democracy in my country. I am choosing not to focus on the day-to-day minutia of that fucking piece of shit currently in your Oval Office, but I want to thank you and all the others who are doing everything to bring him to account. Thank you.
Hi, Michael. My name's Oscar. I'm Australian. And my 2020 declaration is that I will come to the United States and campaign for the Democratic candidate for the election. Hopefully Bernie Sanders, because it's heartbreaking to see what's happening over there. And also because the world needs a good US president for climate and for a whole lot of things. So that's my declaration. I'm coming over to help out. Keep up the work you do, and Happy New Year.
Hi, Mike. My dog and I have been listening to your podcast, and we love it. There's something about your voice that's very relaxing, and I feel like I have a friend in the room talking politics, which is not always an easy thing to do today. Anyhow, I just wanted to let you know that I really appreciate everything you've done, going right back to the very first movie you made, and for this podcast series. I declare that I will be listening to each and every one of them as I look forward to voting for Bernie Sanders. President Bernie Sanders. That's what I'm thinking. Happy New Year.
Hello, Mike. This is Lemise. I'm Syrian of Kurdish descent, and I didn't hear anything about what happened to my people and what would America do to make it up to them for what happened, the ethnic cleansing that has happened, a lot of deaths. You have no idea what's happening there. And I would like to know that your allies can still depend on the United States. This is a bit hard for me to talk about because I see a lot of what's happening firsthand because I have family there. So I would like to hear from you. Thank you very much. Keep up the good work. I listen to your podcast all the time, and I enjoy it. Thank you.
Hi, Michael Moore. I'm Nicole. I declare that I am going to serve my profession by unionizing the nurses in my area. Have a good, happy 2020.
My name is Barbara Hay. I live in Tulsa, Oklahoma. In 2020, I'm going to take care of myself as well as I've taken care of my family for 35 years. I was widowed young with 4 children. Now I'm an empty nester with grandchildren. I'm going to move every day and write my books, which may seem diametrically opposed, but the theory is that if I walk off my anxiety over the current state of affairs, I'll be better focused when I sit down to write. I'm a children's and young adult author. And I'm going to get out and talk to more young people about being lifelong learners, to do their own discovery, their own research about current events and the things in which they're interested. Encourage them to discover their own purpose in life and how to make the world a better place, as I did with my own children.
Good morning, Michael. Thank you so much for initiating this amazing podcast. I've been enjoying it, deeply enjoying it for the last 2 weeks. My name is Nancy. I'm Italian, born in Italy, live in Canada, and I've seen a lot and experienced a lot as an immigrant all over the world. And my declaration is to change this patriarchal system, this pyramid system, into more a matriarchal system, so a circular system. Anyhow, thank you so very much. You are such an inspiration. Happy New Year. Bye-bye now.
Hi, Michael. My name is Kayla, and I live up here in Canada. And my New Year's wish is to be a little kinder to people that I meet, to be a little bit more understanding, and to try to make a difference and an impact in the world that we all live in. You are doing that. I am very grateful for everything that you're doing for our planet. I'm sorry that you're going through what you're going through in your country, but please know that anytime you want to come up here to Canada to live, you're welcome. Although here in Ontario, we kind of have a dick of our own, and his name is Ford, but he's no match for you. So anytime you want to come up here, come on up. Happy New Year, Michael.
Hi, Michael. This is Nancy calling from Minnesota. This next election, I'm hoping to help organize a march on Washington. If the Republicans win, and I'm sure millions of Americans will not believe it, because they have all said they're going to break the law, they're going to lie, cheat, and steal to win. So if they win, I'm not going to believe it. If the Democrats win, they're going to say it's rigged and they cheated, and they're not going to leave office. I think that a march on Washington is going to be necessary. The people need to come. The people are coming. So I'm hoping, as part of my resolution, to organize a march on Washington sometime after the election. Thanks, Michael. I love this podcast.
Hi, Michael. I'm calling from Pennsylvania, where Donald Trump supporters abound in my neighborhood. I have lost a lot of friends. I have disconnected with a lot of family. And my thing for this year is to just stop arguing with them. I'm not going to argue with them about Donald Trump, about the disastrous things he's doing. I am not going to argue with trolls and bots on Facebook or Twitter. I am just going to try and focus on getting people to vote, getting out the positive message of the Democratic Party, and letting people know we just need to get rid of Trump. But I'm not going to argue with anybody about it.
Wow, some pretty powerful stuff there. I thank all of you who phoned me here in the last 12 to 24 hours with your New Year's declarations. And I know there are many more of you thinking the same things. You're also welcome to send them to me. I'd love to read them. Maybe I'll do an additional show of them in the coming days or weeks. We'll see. But if you just want me to read what you have to write, to listen to what you have to say, I'd love to do that. I want this to be a two-way street as much as it technologically possibly can. So thank you for that. And I think I want to close by offering a couple of to-do items that everybody listening here can participate in and do locally. Now, we will have podcasts about. We'll get into the weeds of this. We'll get into a little more depth about how you can do these things. But I want you just to start thinking about it here. I want you to start the new year out today doing this. I know this is the day where a lot of people are doing push-ups and lifting weights and going for a walk. And, we all want to be healthy. It's a critical thing. We can't fight Trump if we don't have our basic health. So I'm doing that, and I encourage everybody else to do that. and it doesn't take a lot. So do that. That's a good New Year's Day resolution. But there are also some things that we can commit to doing for our neighbors, our community, our country on this day. You know, those beautiful ceremonies that we see of immigrants taking their oath to become a citizen of the United States, and they've got their families there. Everybody's so happy. You know, they're citizens by choice. Unlike myself, you know, I was born here. Nobody asked me if I wanted to be an American. I just was on day one. The people that struggle to come here, to want to be part of this, especially when they know what they know about us, and I'm referring to not just the person in the White House, but all the other things that, you know, we somehow don't live up to what we say that we are, and yet people still want to be here and want to be an American, and they take this pledge. Wouldn't it be great if every year on January 1st, we all took that pledge again and again and again, that we'll defend and we'll support the Constitution of this country, that we will stand up, we will involve ourselves as citizens of this democracy. It is not a democracy if we don't participate. It's not a spectator sport. It is a participatory event, and it requires all of us, all of you, even if you're not 18 yet, if you're a teenager, if you're a middle school student, you're listening to this, we need you. We need everybody in the game. Everybody. And so on this day, you know, I don't have a pledge written for us to take. I could try to, well, I've always wanted to modify the Pledge of Allegiance. I've always had some discomfort with certain things. The original, I think the original pledge was written by a Baptist preacher who was also a socialist back in the late 1800s. And then words got added to it later, and it got switched around, and it became not about pledging allegiance to the country and the people of this country, but to a flag, and declaring that we were all under God, forcing those who were not, don't see themselves as under God to have to say that and be part of that. But we need something more like, I pledge allegiance. How would this go? I pledge allegiance to the people of the United States of America and to this republic for which we all stand. One nation, indivisible. One nation, part of one world, with liberty and justice for all. That's not a bad idea. And so here's a couple of things that I want to suggest that you make a commitment to do here on New Year's Day 2020. And then we'll talk about it in the coming weeks in terms of how we can all actually do these things. Number one is, I want everybody listening right now to declare themselves a candidate for office in 2020. Now, you're thinking, wait a minute, Mike, this is a little crazy. Can't have millions of people running. Yes, we can, actually. I'm going to tell you how to do it. First of all, please, don't we all know by now that if we leave the job of holding elective office up to the people that we have seen over recent years and decades, where has that gotten us? Where are we at? We're bringing down the atmosphere that surrounds this planet. We're killing off species in the oceans. We're doing, you don't need me to go on one of my rants of everything that these politicians have. We don't have a single fucking bullet train. We do not have one. We and the British invented the train, for Christ's sake, and we don't have a single train that can go anywhere at any high rate of speed like they have in Japan, Taiwan, China, Germany, France, Spain. Do I need to go on? I could list a lot more countries. They all have this. We don't have it. We don't have it in part because we don't have the political will. We don't have people in there fighting for us. We have them making calls. How many emails did you get yesterday from politicians asking you to give them money on the last day of the fourth quarter, right? If you're on any kind of list, oh my God, it's mind numbing. We need you running for office. We need real people running for office. We need bartenders running for office. Yes, I'm referring to Ms. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Of course, she wasn't just a bartender. She was a very smart woman who had worked in Senator Ted Kennedy's office, who had given of her time in her teens and her 20s. And then, yes, she was a bartender, and then decided, you know what, I can do this. I can run for Congress. In fact, I'm going to run against one of the top leaders in the Democratic Party in the Bronx and Queens. And she just did it. And she wasn't the only one that did that in 2018. Some of you need to think about running for office. And maybe you don't have to run for Congress, but the state legislatures are going to determine the 2020 census and how these districts are carved up. And if we're going to end gerrymandering, we need you in your state capital. I need you to run for state representative or state assembly person. I need you to run for state senator. But if you don't want to do that, you can run for county commission. You can run for city council. You can run for village council. There's all the offices on the ballot. You can run. A lot of them, oftentimes, when you vote, you notice how there's nobody running against them in the primary. In many general elections, there's only either a Democrat or only a Republican on the ballot. This is democracy. You should run. I'm telling you right now. Think about this. And remember, the great lesson of Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is you don't need a ton of money. You need to knock on doors. You need to knock on every door, and then you need to knock on every door a second time. That's the most important thing. You need to let people see you and meet you and listen to you, and you need to listen to them. That's the most important thing in running for office. And I know a lot of you think, well, I got 2 jobs. I've got 3 kids. There's no way I have any time to run for office, and I understand that. So there is an office you can run for. It's called precinct delegate. All right. In most states, in most counties, each neighborhood elects anywhere from 2 to 6 what are called precinct delegates for each of the parties. And oftentimes, if you've noticed on that part of the ballot, there's no names on there. Nobody runs for them. So the party hacks, the poobahs, they then get to pick the precinct delegates that go to the county and then the state conventions. And then we wonder why we end up with people that are not representing us. Why is the minimum wage still $7.25 an hour? Right? That on that alone, they should all be thrown out. $7.25 an hour. That is still that. How, there's been no raise in it since 2009. That's the first year of the Obama presidency. All right, that's just one thing, but I'm just saying there's so many reasons why we shouldn't tolerate this anymore. You should run for office. Run for precinct delegate. Here's what it takes. You'll have to call your city or your county clerk, your township clerk, and find out what are the requirements. It's usually a petition. You need 10 signatures. Literally, it's not much. It's 10 signatures. I know in one place it's 3 signatures. It's 20 signatures. That's it. You turn that into the city or the county clerk, and then suddenly you're on the ballot. And just all you got to do is just, tell the people do some social media. Let people know that when the primary comes or whenever they vote for precinct delegates in your state, that they vote for you. If you win, and trust me, because there's so many blank spaces on these ballots, anybody who puts their name on the ballot these days usually wins. When you win, that means you go to the county convention, the annual county convention, where you select the delegates to go to the state convention. At the state convention, that's where they pick not just the delegates that go to the national convention to nominate the presidential nominee, but to also at the state convention, depending on the state, this is where you vote for who's going to be running for the Supreme Court in your state, or the Court of Appeals, or the Board of Regents for your state universities, or it differs from state to state. But you get to have a say in this. And here's what it requires of your time once you're elected. Once a year, county convention. And if you're elected to the state convention, once a year. That's it. Do you have 2 days somewhere in the year? Usually these conventions are on a Saturday, sometimes a Sunday. You have 2 days to give to this country. I know you do. Run for office in 2020, declare yourself a candidate. In fact, my dream for 2020 is that everybody who's listening here on New Year's Day to this podcast, they will be able to say when they're asked, well, what gave you the idea of running for office? Well, I'm a Rumble podcast person. I don't think if you don't know what that means, we're all Rumblers here. And that's how I decided to run. And so, because I want to be able to tell people, no, I don't. It's not that I have a million listeners. I have a million candidates. You listen to Rumble? Yes, I listen to Rumble. That should automatically imply you're a candidate because you ran for precinct delegate or you ran for city council or school board. Whatever it is, do it. Seriously, do it. If it's school board, I know where, when I was elected to the school board at 18, it was one meeting a month. That's it. Some places it's a meeting a week. Sometimes it's 2 meetings a year. I mean, seriously, there's no excuse for any of us not to be involved. And I promise you, I will do this. I will run for office. I will run for the precinct delegate in my neighborhood in Michigan this coming year. And there, I've just declared my candidacy right here on New Year's Day. Call somebody up and declare yours today. Anybody in your family or friends, tell them you're going to run for office. The second thing that you can do before we wind up here, I just want to have you think about this, and then we'll talk about it more on future podcasts. A lot of these letters that came in today and the tweets on people were saying, I want to do something right in my neighborhood. You can do something. You can just declare yourself block captain. Block captain, that's it. Pick your candidate. You're for Bernie. You're the Bernie block captain on Oak Street in Traverse City, Michigan. That's it. You don't have to call the Bernie campaign to get permission. I'm giving you permission to declare yourself the block captain. If there's another person or two, have co-block captains. Try to get a diversity of age and gender and ethnicity. Just if you can, do that. But if you can't, if it's just you, just do it. You live in an apartment building, make yourself the block captain of the floor you live on, or the building. So what are you doing for the election this year? Well, I'm block captain of the Rock Creek Apartments. Really? Yeah, I'm block captain for Cory Booker. Okay, wow. And who appointed you? Me, and also there was myself and I. So think about that. We'll talk about this. I'll give you some actual ways that you can do this, where we can get the yard signs up. You can get out the vote. All of us have to be committed to getting 10 people we know to the polls on November 3rd. But right now, you got the primaries coming up. This is where we're going to decide the candidate. We're going to pick the person that's going to beat Trump, and we've got to pick the person that's going to beat Trump. Wait, did I say beat? Oh, wait a minute. I'm sorry. Hillary beat Trump. No, we're picking the candidate in these primaries and caucuses that's going to crush Trump, that's going to leave us with no option other than his complete removal. And then with that right person in the White House, we can start to fight for the things that we can get. And trust me, we can get the Senate back in our hands. 3 seats. 3 seats. If we have a Democrat in the White House, we just need 3 seats flipped. Colorado, you can do this. Come on. Arizona, Georgia, North Carolina, Maine. Are you listening? Maine. What are you doing with a Republican? Come on. We can flip the Senate. I'm so convinced of this. We'll talk about this on future podcasts. But folks, on New Year's Day, all you got to do right now is just declare your candidacy. You're going to run for at least precinct delegate in your neighborhood for the political party of your choice. Hopefully it's the Democrats. And then the second thing you're going to do is declare yourself block captain or building captain or workplace captain, or at school. You go to school, your dorm. You're the dorm captain for X candidate. You can do this. It'll feel good. And you decided to do it on the very first day, not only of the new year, but the new decade. When we all join back together here 10 years from today, we look back on the decade that we're entering, we're going to see that we made it happen. We made it happen because we got off our butts. We did it. And we realized and we embraced the fact that we were the majority already. It was just a matter of doing what needed to be done. And I think we can do this. I want to thank you for listening to these first 12 episodes. And we'll be back again in the next day or two, hopefully. I know we said this was going to be a weekly podcast, and we were just going to do these mostly daily shows for the first couple of weeks here during the holidays. The holidays are going to, I think, officially be over the next few days, so we'll figure out what we're going to do. We'll tell you about it, how you can participate in it. For now, please subscribe. We need you to subscribe. This will really help us when they all get back in the office on Monday at Apple and Spotify and Google and Anchor and Endeavor and everybody. So please subscribe. So many thousands of you have already done this. Geez, Basil, how many listens are we? We're approaching. I mean,
we are approaching 800,000 listens already.
In just 12 days, or 2 weeks, 12 podcasts. Well, that doesn't even count this one because we're just recording it right now. So in 11 podcasts, 800,000 listens. This is insane. Let's get over 1 million by the time they all show up to work on Monday. They're at all the poobahs, the wonderful people at the various podcast platforms. Let them see that while they were away, there were 1 million of you that listened to this and subscribed. So thank you, everybody. Basil, thank you. We have spent months preparing for this. We are spending our time when we're not doing the podcast, doing these other things that we're going to do to organize through the podcast and the other things this year to get this country back in our hands and to do the things we've never been able to do. We are committed to this. I know the people listening to this are committed to it. And, I don't have anything else to say except Happy New Year. I want this to be a happy year. It will be a happy year. We can will this to happen. And, any final words, Basil, from you? And Nick, you're off over there doing the tech on this, but thank you for what you've done. And thanks to my family and the others who've supported us getting this thing off the ground.
Rumble 2020. We'll see you in Iowa, New Hampshire, hopefully Nevada, hopefully California.
Definitely. Oh, yes.
Michigan, of course.
We're going to be out there. We're going to take this to you, and maybe we'll do some. Maybe we'll have some live events where people can come, be part of the audience.
People would love that. People are writing in and tweeting about that, so they definitely love to see some of these conversations be taped live and in front of a studio.
Well, that'll be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Tell your friends about this. Please tell your friends about Rumble, about this podcast, and also for people that don't have are not on the podcast platforms, we're on YouTube. You can listen to this on YouTube. You won't get to see any images of us because we're into the sound right now. It's we had somebody write us yesterday that said they were at some place where I was doing a thing about teaching film, and I said that sound was more important than picture because sound carries the story. The picture is kind of the nice added bonus cherry on top thing, but the sound, the intimacy of the sound with each other and letting our own imaginations, our own brains create the pictures. It's a very powerful thing. It's why it's never gone away ever since the invention of radio back at the beginning of the last century. So we're happy to be part of this. We've had a great New Year's Eve and New Year's with you. Thank you for your participation, and we will talk to you very, very soon. Thank you, everybody. Happy New Year from Rumble with